Hey everybody, this is Francesco Abbruzzino, and we are fortunate enough to have Tom Ufert on the line with us. He is an author of several books. He's out there right now promoting his current one, which is Political Craps, and it's basically about getting informed, getting involved, just get it political, just get it, politics affecting. Sorry, Tom, I just slaughtered that title for you.
That's all right.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about this book and what your goal is with the readers?
I started the book 7 months ago. It's heavily researched. There are 230 sources in my bibliography. And the basic tenet of the book is get informed, get involved, just get it. Politics affects you. And I chose the title Political Craps because, you know, the general impression that most people have about politicians is that they're full of it. And that's one of the three basic designs behind the word craps. The second one is, as the book cover demonstrates, it's a picture of a craps table with the Democratic chips, the Republican chips, and the People's chips, and two big red dice rolling, because my assertion is that our present political leadership are playing a craps game with the nation's future. The third tenet behind, or the third meaning behind the word craps is it's a anagram, or not an anagram, but it stands for C stands for compromise.
Acronym.
R stands
was what you're looking for.
Thank
Okay.
you. Yeah. You'll have to edit that part out. It's an acronym that stands C stands for compromise, R stands for rancor, A stands for affluence, P stands for policy, and S stands for stupidity. And there's a chapter in each in the book for each one of those, and then the last chapter is called Current Events Have Consequences, and I deal with several of the recent bad boy politicians like Chris Christie and Bridgegate. I deal with the NSA scandal, the IRS scandal. Unfortunately, the VA scandal broke after I got the book published. Otherwise, I would have hit on that one as well. And the Benghazi scandal. So my whole tenet behind the book is, look, all of these things affect you as citizens. You may not be affected on a day-to-day basis, but politics does affect you. And it is your responsibility as an American citizen to get involved, because if you don't, then you have no one to blame but yourself. And I tell the humorous story. In 1986, I was working on Capitol Hill as an intern for Louisiana Congressman Buddy Roemer. And my father, I went home to visit my parents after working on Capitol Hill, and my father was sitting at the TV, and this was the summer of Iran-Contra. And at that time, I was a big college Republican. And my father turned to me and he said, "Look what your president has done to our country." And I turned to him and I said, "Dad, forgive me for saying this, but you're not even registered to vote, so you've got no right to bitch." And, you know, he didn't say another word. My mom told me a week after I left, he went out and registered to vote.
Oh, really?
I've been involved in politics since I was 17. I've worked on 11 political campaigns, ranging from city council all the way up to the presidency. I was a White House fellow nominee. I got my degrees in political science and history. I did graduate studies at Australian National University in East Asian political affairs. And though my physical challenges that occurred to me in 1992 with 3 different disabilities have limited my ability to get physically involved, I wrote this book because I wanted to show that to the average American citizen, you can get involved. If I can do it, anybody can do it. And every aspect of my book was taken from the internet. because the internet provides the average American citizen an endless supply of data that they can go and get informed and make decisions for themselves.
Now, your views in this book, are they apolitical, to the right or left?
They are apolitical.
Okay.
I used to be a Republican. Then when George W. Bush became president and Dick Cheney became vice president, I left the Republican Party in disgust. His dad, I was very fortunate to have met and be involved with on 3 separate occasions. I was very impressed with his background as former ambassador to China, former CIA director, and vice president. So when he became president, I got totally disgusted. I left the party. I became a Democrat and was a Democrat for a while. And then I became so disgusted with them, I became an independent. And interestingly enough, my former boss, Buddy Roemer, ran for president as a Republican candidate in 2012. And he got his MBA from Harvard. He was a 6-term Democratic congressman from the 4th District of Louisiana, then ran for governor. I ran his youth campaign when he ran for governor. He switched parties after his first term as governor of Louisiana to Republican. So he served 20 years as a boll-weevil Democrat, 20 years as a Republican. And when the Republicans wouldn't even let him get on stage during the 2012 election because they didn't want to hear his views, he decided to run as an independent. Buddy's views are very simple. He believes in campaign finance reform to the point where we take big money out of politics. And my book addresses that issue. Buddy, his entire political campaign career, he never accepted campaign contributions from individuals more than $100. He never accepted PAC money. He never accepted corporate money.
I think most of us wish that most politicians were like that. And the lobbyists would have less influence in Washington. And then maybe they would start to listen to the people.
Thank you. And actually, my book addresses lobbyists specifically. I go through campaign finance reforms all the way back to the 1800s. And I specifically addressed the one issue that Buddy pointed out during his campaign. He said, look, both political parties are attached at the wallet. And that is exactly what most Americans think. And my whole attitude in the book, and I try to stress this, is if you want change, you want reform, then you have to get off your butts and go make it happen.
So does your book sort of give them that guidance? Because pre-show, you and I were talking, and I said that's one of my biggest concerns is that people aren't involved, especially at the local level, the city and the county. And I mentioned having the county guy that's running for county commissioner on yesterday, and I just don't feel people were listening or interested in hearing what he has to do, even though he has such a great impact on their lives if he's elected.
The book does not specifically address local issues, but I chose the title Craps, Political Craps, because I thought that would appeal to a broad segment of the population that they could relate to. And you're absolutely right. The local political scene is something that most people don't get involved with. I mean, take, for example, what happened with Eric Cantor's re-election in the primary a few months ago in Virginia. Less than 11% of the registered voters decided that primary election. 68,000 people basically voted in that election. And they decided who was going to be the victor or the loser. And because of a vocal minority, the second most powerful man in the Republican caucus in the House of Representatives was knocked out of power. Now, you can't tell me that a single vote doesn't count. And I in my political career, I have always been fond of examples of a single vote counting. For example, in 1932, Adolf Hitler was elected to the Chancellery of Germany, not to the Chancellery, but he was elected Chancellor of Germany by a single vote in the Reichstag. Franklin Roosevelt's Lend-Lease program was approved by a single vote in Congress. Andrew Johnston, the president after Abraham Lincoln, was impeached, but was the vote to convict him by the Senate was by one vote. There are endless examples of where a single vote counts, and that is what I try to stress to people, is that your vote does count, and that we as responsible citizens of a democratic republic have a responsibility and a moral imperative, a moral obligation or a moral imperative to get out there and change things. Otherwise, big corporations and the lobbyists are the ones that are going to continue to control what goes on in Congress. And right now, there is so much dysfunction and so much partisan division that what we as the American people need to have done, jobs, immigration reform, finance reform, things that relate to our everyday lives and relate to our pocket, our wallets, aren't being addressed because we don't get out and protest, and we don't have a voice in what happens. Now, when I worked on Capitol Hill, I can tell you, in my book, there are several charts and graphs. There are even photographic images of where the lobbyists have direct impact on congressional members. And I write about in the book, when I was working on Capitol Hill, I was invited to, as a member of the staff for Buddy's congressional staff, I was invited to 2 black tie dinners by political action groups. One is called AIPAC, which stands for the Arab-Israeli Political Action Committee. It is one of the most powerful political action groups on Capitol Hill. Now, there were several thousand people there. It was black tie affair. And let me tell you, these people don't throw around $100,000 for a dinner if they don't expect to get some results from it. And the people that they invited to this event were all Capitol staffers, because they are the gatekeepers who decide who comes and goes in a congressman's schedule. And that is where the people need to understand that these lobbying groups have the influence and they have the access that we're supposed to have. And we are the largest political action group in the country. We're the voters. So we have to get out and decide. Now, I make it very clear in the book, I'm not advocating insurrection. I'm not advocating armed revolt. Nothing like that. What I'm advocating is what this country is based on. Active participation by the citizenry to change and reform the government.
I think a lot of people have concerns now, though. I'll take up the immigration issue over in California, where they're trying to prevent the buses from going into their small town. The mayor says he was not contacted by the federal government to put the illegal kids there. So they've been trying to stop it. But now the sheriff came out, I think, late yesterday and said, look, I'm going to start arresting you guys if you're out there protesting and getting in the way of these trucks and trying to turn them around. So a lot of people, it seems like over the last couple of years, people are a little bit more intimidated by government, afraid they're going to get in trouble if they speak up, or if they go out and protest something like the illegals.
Well, and they've got every right to be concerned about that. But listen, let me tell you, activism, it's one of the things I say in the book. With activism and participation comes responsibility. And if you're afraid of getting involved, then you have to accept what happens. If you don't get involved, all you have to do is look at the civil rights campaign of the 1960s. These are people that put their lives, their homes, their families, their jobs, everything that they believed in and everything that was dear to them on the line for a cause that was dear to their hearts. Well, I'm here to tell you, to the American people, our democracy should be dear to our hearts. And it is time for us to protest so that we send the message to Washington that you need to get involved. Now, you bring up immigration. The president was here in Dallas and Fort Worth yesterday and in Austin yesterday evening. He met with Governor Perry. I'll be the I and Governor Perry do not see eye to eye on a lot of things. We comically refer to him as the governor for life here in Texas, and we're still wondering when he's, that we're glad we're getting a new election, although we're not very pleased with the two candidates running. But they met, and you saw the big rigmarole in the press about who invited who to do what and to meet where. And
will there be a handshake?
Exactly. And there was a handshake. And, the president says he's not going to the border because it's not theater, because he doesn't want to do it for a photo op. And I can understand that, having worked in politics. I understand the importance of visual optics.
You know what, though? I got to tell you, that was like the biggest snafu, because now everybody on Fox, they're putting up when he's doing his photo op for Obamacare with the guys in the white jackets. The night before going to Austin, he was doing the pool hall photo op, and it's
exactly. And he was in Denver, and the guy offered him a joint. Yeah, I get it. And I understand, like, for example, Congressman Gutierrez in the South Valley region, where he says, I hope and pray that this does not become Obama's Katrina moment. And I'm not here to compare Katrina with what's happening on the border, because they are a far cry from each other. I'm from Louisiana. I have friends and relatives in New Orleans. I have good friends that were from the Ninth Ward. I know what happened there. But I understand the visual optics. Bush flew over flew over New Orleans, and the helicopter looked down from on high, and basically that was all he got as his contact and his relation to what happened. Obama, I can understand the White House and the administration and his advisors saying, we don't need to go down there to make this political. I'm sorry, it's already a political issue. The Republicans are making it that way. The president needs to go down because he needs to send a message from the bully pulpit that this is an issue that means something to the American people, and I'm here to address it. If nothing else, he gets to meet face-to-face with some of these children and their parents that are here from these Central American countries, and he gets to meet with the Border Patrol people, and he can meet with the faith-based community that have been there working in the trenches for the last several years, dealing with this ongoing crisis. So that, in my opinion, is why the president needs to go down there. And if people want to criticize him for it being a photo op, let him criticize it. At least he's showing leadership. And I'm sorry, the president is not the only one in this country that's not showing leadership. Congress is not showing leadership. They don't call it the Do-Nothing Congress for nothing. They haven't done anything since they got elected.
Well, that's because you got Bonehead Boyner in there and then Harry Reid. I think both these guys need to go.
Well, and that's something that I discuss. I mean, I write a political blog on my website, www.tomufert.com, and my blog, I write about several issues. And one of the things is that regardless of what party they're with, the leadership in both houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives, they are controlling the legislation by restricting it from getting to a vote on the floor. And I'm sorry, that's not what they're there for.
Exactly.
They're not there. They're supposed to be leaders. And, I use a quote in one of my in the book, that what we need in America is we need leaders who are not concerned about their welfare. They're more concerned about ours. Right. And in a blog that I just wrote a couple weeks ago, I suggested that one of the things that we can demand from candidates running for office this fall is, okay, if you believe so strongly in this issue on immigration, then proclaim to the American public that if immigration reform is not passed within 120 days of your election, you're going to resign. Now, if a majority of the members that get elected in November were to say that and hold to it, what a signal that would send to the world and to the American people that this issue is so critical to them that they refuse to take part in the BS going on inside the Beltway, that they are going to walk away from it until it gets taken care of.
Let me ask you this. Are they going to believe it's an action that's needed to be taken when you got someone like Obama promising trying to get $3.8 billion to house the illegals versus trying to send them back and prevent any more from flooding in?
Well, now let's be fair. The $3.7 billion that the president has proposed, 50% of that proposal does go towards housing and taking care of these illegal children, these undocumented children and mothers that have come in from Central America while they are here. Part of the problem is the 2008 law that President Bush signed in that gives non-contiguous nations that are not directly attached to the United States. I have to spell that out because some people may not understand what non-contiguous means. And they come in, the law requires the government to give them due process in immigration courts for them to be properly processed. Now that law, most of these undocumented illegals that are coming across, the mothers and the children, are coming from El Salvador, Guatemala, Nicaragua, and Honduras. And not Nicaragua, excuse me, but Honduras. And they are being fed a line by the drug cartels. Give us your money and we'll get you up there, and as soon as you cross the Rio Grande, you will get to stay. Now, part of the problem is that the president has made it clear in some of his speeches that yes, we will take care of you if you come across the border. But the other 50% that the $3.7 billion is proposed for is to deal with the backlog in the immigration court system. Now, the biggest problem that we have to deal with is, one, we need to repeal this law, or we need to revise it so that we can deal with this, and we give the immigration courts and the Border Patrol our staffs the power and the tools to rapidly process them for deportation. But we also have to deal, Vice President Biden went down to the Central America and promised $250 million to help deal with the ongoing crisis in these countries. And that is a noble effort on the part of the American government to deal with it there, because that's where the root cause is. However, what we have to face, and we have to face immediately, is the fact that immigration reform needs to be carried out. And the $3.7 billion is a Band-Aid on the present crisis. And frankly, both political parties are jumping on it for their own political ends. They're turning it and they're spinning it whichever way they can as the November elections approach, because they're trying to appeal to the American voters. Oh, we've got the best idea. The problem is nobody is dealing with it. The immigration bill that has been in the Senate for a year, John Boehner has refused to bring to the House floor because he knows that if he brings it to the House floor, it will pass, but it will pass with a majority of Democrats and not his own Republican caucus, and that will look like a defeat to him. So what? The American people don't care if it's a Republican proposal or a Democratic proposal. All they care and copies of my button that says political craps on it, and it says no more, enough is enough. But the headline is, in the fall, fire them all.
In the fall, fire them all. I like that.
Yeah. And like I said, the basic premise of the book is get informed and get involved. And I created an acronym for that, GG. Okay, GIGI. Get informed and get involved. I've created buttons. I've created T-shirts. I've created keychains, coffee mugs with the political craps emblem on it. And my goal is I'm trying to get to the American people, I'm trying to get some national media recognition that this is an issue that concerns us all. And with the coming fall elections, basically, I don't think any of them are doing a good job. And if they're not, then let's fire them all. Write in some people. If you know somebody that's going to be a good person that you trust, that is going to do the job and not be a lobbyist toady, then write them in, because a lot of the states in this country have write-in abilities on the ballot. And that is another alternative. You don't have to accept the Democrat or the Republican primary victor. You can write in candidates. And this is where the American people need to take action, and they need to retake control of their own destiny, because the people that we've elected up there now aren't doing the job. So it's time to get rid of them.
Where can they find your book, and on Facebook, Twitter, your website, and get...
Actually, you can find the book Political Craps on Amazon.com. You can also find several of my political essays. And you can find my first book, which is called Adversity Builds Character, which talks about my 3 disabilities. And you can basically find out about who I am and what I'm all about. My writings are meant to be inspirational, and they're meant to appeal to people's hearts and souls and their minds, because I'm a firm believer that, this is a great country that we live in, and we are blessed with a democracy, and it is our moral obligation, our moral imperative to get informed and get involved.
Yeah, and you got some good write-ups. I'm reading one by Nicole. She says, this is a great book, even if you end up not of the viewpoint of the author. He does such a good job informing the reader of so many different topics regarding our politics. But
there was another review in Great Britain. It's not listed on Amazon unless you go to the UK site for Amazon. And the guy wrote, his headline was, completely unexpected, kept me awake. And it was a wonderful headline. Because he had never heard of me, did not know anything about American politics, read the book, and he said he read the book from cover to cover. It kept him awake. And he said for most political books, he's bored to tears.
I think most people are. And you got a good price for it on Amazon, paperback $17.09, and for Kindle, just $1.99.
Right now it's $1.99 during the World Cup. Now, it'll go back up to $3.99 after the World Cup. During the 4th of July holiday, I had a 99-cent sale. But you know what? For $3.99, you can't beat it.
So we only have about 3 more days until it goes back up?
It goes back up on Monday. It goes back up to $3.99 on Monday after the World Cup finals.
All right, so anything else, any parting words you'd like to share to try to get people motivated to get the book and get involved in politics?
Well, I've been struggling. The book was released on June 6th, which was D-Day. And I've been struggling to get my message out and get the word out. I'm an average American citizen. I am not what you would consider a political pundit. I do have expertise. I do have experience because of 30 years of political involvement. I am the typical American citizen who believes in this country, wants to do good things for my fellow citizens and for basically humanity around the world. America is a beacon on a hill, but right now the light that we have spent generations lighting is going out and it's flickering because American citizens are not getting involved. Everyone cries, moans, and complains about things that are not getting done and how awful our politicians are. Well, get off your butts and change it. And that's what my book is about. And it specifically addresses issues that I think are going to affect this election in the fall. And my encouragement is buy the book, read it, and if you're not inspired after that to get involved in the fall elections and the upcoming 2016 elections, then frankly, this country's in trouble.
All right, and I couldn't have said it much better. And now, if his website is tomufert.com, and I will put that at the bottom of the screen along with his Facebook page if you want to like his page and keep up with his blogs and everything. Tom, thanks a lot for coming on the show. It was a great interview and very interesting perspective.
Frank, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. And listen, God bless you. Your show's a fantastic show, and you keep up the good hard fight.
All right, thanks, man. Tom. Have a good day.
All right. Thank you. Okay.
All right, so there you have it, folks. Some interesting information, and I've said this a million times, just like with my interview yesterday with the county commissioner, where I'm just concerned that too many people are not involved in politics at the local level, and they don't realize the impact it has on their lives. And even like Tom just said, even at the national level, where that congressional rep was beat out by just 11% of the people that live in the state. So it's time to get up, time to take action, time to take back our government. For Frank Abbruzzino, everybody have a great day.